Here, and now you know why we love this event, because it just like the energy in the room is amazing. I want to introduce Deanna Pickala real quick, and I don't want to forget any of her titles or education because I think she's amazing in all that she does. She is a board certified coach and consultant specializing in women's health through midlife. So she has a master's in health and human performance, and she's a clinical Ayurveda specialist. And I have actually personally been seeing her for probably 7 months now. And I have lost about 40 pounds, but outside of that, like that's not even the biggest part of it. I think one of the things that gets bypassed is how all of our hormones and everything starts to change, even starting in our 30s. And how we process stress is so much different than how we process stress before. So Deanna, I'm so sorry. I've been calling her Diana.
It's spelled like Diana.
It's confusing. But she not only has like the education and the certification and the background, but she has the intuition to kind of dive deeper with you and help you work through any stresses you have going on. And it's been an amazing change in my life and in my household. So thank you.
Thank you so
I'm
much.
excited to hear what you have to say.
Yay for Sandy. It's not easy, and she's done just so incredible. So super rewarding. All right, so I'm gonna start a little projection here. So thank you guys for being here, and thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be here with you, and it's just so special to have an all-women's event focusing on health and wellness and balance. I know as women, we tend to juggle a gazillion things and try to sort of find balance and all of that, which is not easy. And so today, I'd like to share with you the hidden connection between stress, hormones, and weight. And so just a little check-in. Do you tend to feel more exhausted than you used to, even after a full night's rest? Truth. And are you noticing weight gain, especially around your midsection? It has the terrible name of menobelly because it happens during a particular time of life, which we won't mention, but we start to change in ways that are quite surprising to us. At least for me, it was quite shocking. I've been in health and wellness my entire life and was so utterly unprepared for the changes that happen in perimenopause and menopause, and was really quite shocked. I actually ran a yoga studio for 20 years and taught yoga, and it's kind of instant karma because I would teach classes and I would keep the heat just a little bit on, not hot yoga, but just comfortable. And all the midlife ladies would go, "It's too hot in here, I can't manage it." And I'll go, "Oh no, just breathe through it, it's fine." And then I got hot flashes and I felt like I was being microwaved from the inside out. And my empathy then kicked in and I thought, oh my gosh, I wish I could go back and just be like, I'm so sorry to all the women who are feeling really hot. So nothing like having your own struggles to make you go deep and figure out what's going on and try and understand how to make it better. And so, that is something that is very common, is this weight gain, despite the fact that we're still eating healthy, we're still exercising, and still doing a lot of good habits, and yet our body's just not responding. And do you feel like stress affects you more than it used to?
No.
We're kind of known to be strong as women. And there's something that happens where all of a sudden we just become a little extra sensitive to stress. Our resilience just dips a little bit. And it's a very shocking thing to wrap our head around. As I mentioned, I ran a yoga studio. I meditated every day. I did yoga, ate healthy, did all of those things. And so it was really quite a shock when my nervous system I was starting to feel anxiety, and I thought, what in the world is this? I had never felt anxiety in my life before. So it was really kind of a rude awakening, but also just a demonstration of how powerful our hormones are. And one of the biggest things that I want to mention is, we tend to feel like if we just work harder, if we just do more, then we're going to get things under control. And well, we'll talk about that more later, but that's not the way. And so other things is, do you ever experience brain fog or mood swings that are not necessarily related to, of course, if we don't get enough sleep, we can feel like our memory is affected and our cognitive function is affected. But we could also start to experience some greater loss of focus and just this kind of feeling of a fog, like you're used to being sharp and on top of it and go, go, go. And all of a sudden you're like, wait a minute, I'm just not feeling quite as sharp. We call this brain fog, and it's one of the lovely symptoms of our hormones changing. And have you tried eating healthier and exercising more, but aren't seeing the results? And that is probably one of the most frustrating things. A lot of us here are, go-getters. We're already focused on health and wellness, and we're no slouches. And yet, sometimes with these hormonal changes, it's difficult to see the results, which can be very disheartening. But there is a way to move that forward. So if you're nodding your head yes, you're not alone. As we can all tell, I can see a lot of yeses in the room. And so, I think one of the biggest things is to know that these are natural changes that happen, but they don't naturally have to be as difficult. And it's been such a taboo to discuss menopause, perimenopause. There are all kinds of negative connotations, but really it's an incredible time, and it's incredible time to rewire, revamp, kind of reflect on life so far and how we can move forward in a way that is going to actually create greater balance, greater wisdom. And we may have to change some things. We can't actually just go forward the way we have been. And it's not because you're not trying hard enough. I'm a type A. I definitely went through that. Oh, I'm going to work out 2 hours a day and I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. And it just got worse. So there's a very, very specific thing that is needed to create this balance. So what's really going on? Why is it that what used to work is no longer working for us? And most health advice doesn't necessarily apply because most health research is actually done on young college age men. And so, yes. In fact, this is crazy, but some researchers will not do or will not include women in research because it brings so much complexity. Our hormones are so complex that it creates a difficulty in the research in terms of making everything even, controlling for the outcomes and so forth. So there's a huge lack of research for women just in general, but especially women in perimenopause and postmenopause. And so when I started feeling these things and I started researching and looking at everything, and I even signed up for a very, very expensive high-end program of a very famous, person and told them right up front, okay, I'm jumping in, but do you guys know how to work with women in menopause? And they said, yes, 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 we do. And they did not. And they did everything wrong, from working me too hard to pushing in ways that stressed out my nervous system and had the opposite effect. And so it's very important to do things that are understanding the mechanisms that are now present in our bodies, how our hormones have changed, how our nervous system has changed. Our nervous system is not the same that it was prior to these hormonal changes. And there is some research coming out, and there's some incredible women that are pioneering some of this movement. Um, but it's still very much in its beginning stages. And, when I was looking into this 5 years ago, I could barely find information. So there's kind of a renaissance, which is very exciting. We are living longer, we are being active and productive longer. And so it's really important to be able to feel strong and competent and feeling great, feeling healthy. And so our bodies are changing, and we have to understand how and what to do about it. So what is actually happening? There are three key players. One is stress, hormones, and metabolism. And so when the hormones shift, I won't get too technical here. You just had yoga, so I don't want to ruin your Zen mode. But of course, you're familiar with estrogen, progesterone, and cortisol, and all of those affect our metabolism, our weight, and our mood. Just in a very, very kind of high level explanation, when we are still ovulating, our ovaries will produce some hormones. And when our ovaries start producing the eggs, then our adrenals have to take over. And so what can happen is as we're active through our younger years, we sort of use up the juice. We kind of use up that strength of the adrenal system. And when we hit perimenopause and menopause, now our adrenals have to kick in and start producing the hormones that our ovaries used to produce. And so there's a double whammy. You lose the protective effects of estrogen and progesterone, and you are now less able to deal with the cortisol. And cortisol is the hormone that gets produced when we're under stress. So as we evolved, we've probably all heard this before, some stress is good. In fact, we adapt, we grow, we get stronger through stress, whether it's physical, mental, environmental. But we have to do it in a way where we're able to adapt. So we have a stressor, we're able to process that, and then we get stronger. But with constant stress, which is very common to our common life, even if you're doing everything right, it's very difficult to eliminate chronic stress. We start to burn out those systems. We're kind of begin to get stuck in the mode of the sympathetic nervous system, which sounds nice, sympathetic, but it's not. It's not that empathetic to us. It's the system that is geared up for fight or flight. And so what happens is we get stuck in a mode where our body is constantly ready to fight or flight. Now you might think, well, what's the big deal? Well, the big deal is that our body is designed to have cycles and phases. And so when we are in fight or flight, we're not repairing, we're not resting, we're not building tissues. And so when we're chronically stuck in that fight or flight, we get increased inflammation because our body can't repair. We get reduced ability to repair tissue, to build muscle, all of these things that we need to be healthy and strong. And so not only do we tend to go, hard and fast for most of our lives, but then we hit these hormonal changes. And now what happens is our cortisol now is going to be much higher. And some of the offsetting protective mechanisms like estrogen, progesterone, those are declining. So we're kind of running in overdrive and the brakes are getting worn out. And we start to feel deeply depleted and stress increases. So that sensitivity, higher sensitivity that a lot of us experience is not imaginary. It's not just because you're moody, it is biological. Your physiology has actually shifted and it's now responding in a new way to the same input. And this in fact impacts our sleep, our energy, and our fat storage. So when cortisol is high, that tends to also affect our body's ability to use insulin and use up glucose or sugar. And so when cortisol is high, our body will hold on to fat. It will store fat. It's an evolutionary mechanism designed to help us get through the hard times. Back in the days, we didn't have a refrigerator and a Whole Foods and a Costco, and we actually had to fight really hard for our food. Now everything is available, but we're stuck in this high drive state. And so that makes it very difficult to lose weight. And it can create this very kind of tricky cycle where the harder you work, the more cortisol goes up, the more difficult it is to lose weight and the more tired you feel. So it can be a very tricky cycle. And the metabolism adapts. So we have estrogen receptors in every cell of our body. When I learned this blew me away. Our muscle responds to estrogen. So when we lose estrogen, we literally lose muscle. We lose also the ability to build muscle as quickly. And so our insulin sensitivity also reduces, which means that we can have the same amount of sugar, but now it's not going into our cells as energy, but it's circulating in our blood, which can increase inflammation once again, and cause all kinds of other issues. So a lot of things change, and it takes a lot of deep understanding to see how we can bring all this back to balance. So it's not all bad news though. There are ways to definitely balance this. So why traditional methods don't work? We talked about this already, some of it. We tend to go on extreme diets. Extreme diets can cause a stress on the body, which once again will increase cortisol, make it more difficult to actually achieve what you're trying to achieve through the diet. We do too much cardio. Believe it or not, too much cardio is not as beneficial during this stage. And we ignore sleep and recovery. Recovery is so important, because if we're working out and breaking things down, because when we work out, we actually do break muscle down, we need the recovery to build that up. But what can happen is, with the hormonal changes, our sleep can be disrupted. It can be hot flashes, it can be anxiety, it can be just waking up. I remember waking up when I first started to get to perimenopause, and I was so confused, like, why am I awake? I would think, did somebody break in? Did I hear something? Like, I could not understand why, for no reason whatsoever, my body would just wake me up in the middle of the night, and I would be like, ready to go. So it was a very confusing time. But with time, of course, that has come back into balance. And every woman is different. There are, of course, themes and principles that go across the board, but it's very important to have an individual and personalized approach, so you can see what's actually going to work for you. So the good news is we can stop fighting with our body. We have to stop using methods that are not designed for women and not designed for midlife. And we can start supporting it, and things can actually dramatically improve. And what works is a holistic, sustainable approach designed specifically for us during these changes. So through my journey, I spent about 4 years researching, went and got a master's degree, and also studied really deeply into hormones and menopause. I'm not a medical doctor, so definitely still see your doctor for that. But I have come up with a program that I myself did. So I essentially created what I couldn't find and created a program called the Swasta Method that helps women essentially find this balance. And it's through coaching and consulting, so that we can customize and really make it work for your particular body, your particular lifestyle, the way you like to eat, the way you like to exercise, and just sort of customize that whole process, including, there's a huge aspect of like our mental state. And I'm not just talking about mental health, because I'm not a therapist, but it's more about how we approach it, the way we think about ourselves and our challenges, and using things like positive psychology, emotional intelligence, affirmations, learning how to really create change, because it's not easy. I know from firsthand experience, change is never easy. So how do we create change? We use coaching, and we use, proven techniques that help us actually create new habits and maintain those habits. And a big part is building resilience. So we go through the whole system and aligning what your body truly needs. So the next step, I would love to offer you guys a free discovery call. You can scan the QR code if you like, or there'll be a card in the little gift bags that has the QR code. It's a 30-minute consultation, and we can just go over what your goals are, what you're interested in, and how, we might be able to work together if you would like to do that. And there's another bonus. So, and what happens, I kind of went through this 30 minutes. We discuss what's been blocking, personalized steps forward, and there's no obligation. It's just a discussion. And another thing that I'm really excited about that I just actually created is a midlife wellness assessment. So normally it's $79, but I would love to offer you guys for free. I think this is such a special group, and I'm so thankful for Sandy for inviting me. And this is an assessment that you can just take online, and it will pinpoint, it just has 20 questions. It will pinpoint which areas are the ones that you might be struggling with the most right now. So whether it's hormonal shifts, metabolism, stress, or sleep and recovery. And so again, you can scan the QR code if you're interested. And I would love to take any questions if you have any.